Fleur Bradley, welcome back to the Rocky Mountain Writer Podcast.
Hi, great to be here.
Well, it's great to get you back on. And we've got level, let's just get right to it. Brand new book coming out in just a few short weeks, mid-August.
Yes, end of August 23rd. So yeah, very excited about it.
Right there on your wall.
Yes.
Daybreak on Raven Island.
Yes. Makes it easy. I can just go like that. So
yeah. You practiced apparently.
Yeah, I do quite a few talks. So with the kids mostly, but yes.
We are going to get to that because I want to talk about that. Do you have an actual physical advanced copy yet, a galley yet?
No, Viking, my publisher has gone away from physical ARCs, so I only have digital ARCs, which isn't, on the one side is a bit of a bummer, but on the other side we're probably saving some trees. So there are galleys, it's just they're electronic ones, so we'll have to wait to hold the book until August.
Very good. Now, does Daybreak on Raven Island, does that pick up the same characters, or is it a whole new batch of people?
No, it's a whole new batch of kids. So there's 3 kids that go on a field trip to Raven Island, which is kind of modeled after Alcatraz. They're not really friends, and they're on this field trip, and they take the ferry to Raven Island, which only comes twice a day because of the currents. They miss the last ferry often, and they have to spend a night on Raven Island, which is very haunted, has lots of haunted history, a prison break, a bit like Alcatraz. So that's the concept of Daybreak on Raven Island. It's kind of a follow-on in a way to Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, because I imagine the readers of Midnight at the Barclay Hotel would naturally graduate to Daybreak on Raven Island. It's just a scotch older, basically.
A scotch, how much is a scotch? A year?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, they overlap in a way because I like mysteries and they're structured similarly, and there's a more haunted factor to Daybreak on Raven Island. I'd say it's a little scarier. So I would skew just maybe, like you said, a year older is probably about right.
Is that something you set out to do, something a little bit older, a little bit scary, or is that something that just happened?
Not really, it sort of happened. So Midnight at the Barclay Hotel in itself, I just focused on a mystery, and that through my editor's vision and through it having illustrations and sort of being a good introduction to mystery, became really successful at even the younger ages. They're reading it as young as 2nd grade, sometimes with teachers. So that book has sort of accidentally ended up younger, and this Daybreak on Raven Island, I would say, is accidentally just a little older because it's a little scarier, I would say.
Yeah, interesting. Well, let's go back just a bit before we get into Raven Island in a little bit more detail. For folks who don't know, I mean, Barclay Hotel, if I'm not mistaken, has done very, very well.
Yes.
Say based
unexpectedly, honestly. So
yeah, I mean, we're coming up under 2 years since it was released. Probably right at about 19 months now, maybe somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I know you're still super active on marketing and doing networking things, but it was a finalist for the Agatha Awards, the Reading the West Book Award finalist, the Anthony Awards finalist. You were the winner of the 2021 Colorado Book Awards for Juvenile Fiction, 2021-2022 Sunshine State Young Readers Award list, and you were featured on NPR's Best of 2020 Middle Grade list. I mean, that is really quite the hardware, the awards and ribbons. That's great.
It is, and I mean, it's wonderful, and I love it, and I'm proud of the book, but I really owe it all to people who talked about the book, teachers who read it with the kids that have been enthusiastic, people who really understood what I was trying to do, the introduction to mystery, and kind of, a celebration of the genre for kids, so to speak. So as much as I'm proud of it, I really owe it to all the people that did the work for me, essentially.
Did you know going into Barclay Hotel that you would sort of continue in this vein, that there would be several books about groups of young adults getting into jeopardy and solving crimes?
No, I mean, when I started writing the Barclay Hotel, I was kind of coming off of a thriller, you can see behind me, a trilogy called Double Vision that I'd written. and that had done okay, but not been like a blockbuster success. So I kind of took of what I learned from marketing those books, how difficult it is for one. And I kind of took a year just to sort of spend time writing the book that I really wanted to write, which was a celebration of mystery. I love mysteries. I love Agatha Christie. And I think their books, mysteries in particular, that they're great books for kids to read because it teaches critical thinking, analytical thinking, and it's just fun. I mean, mystery is one of the most popular genres for adults. We should really have more specific mysteries for kids. So that was my goal with the Barclay Hotel. And beyond that, it was sort of like, we'll have to see if it sells. So that was my original stance a few years ago when I was working on the book. And it took a while to find an agent, to find a publisher. And it wasn't easy, even though I knew what I wanted to do and how there was a need for teachers, librarians, kids, that they would really enjoy this book. I didn't know. You never know with a book. You know, it can fall totally flat, be an awesome book, and just not reach its audience. And I learned that with Double Vision. Even though that had done all right, it just never found that sort of speed to get anywhere and to really get any sort of buzz going. So I learned a lot from those books and kind of applied it to Midnight at the Barclay Hotel. And ever since, I've just sort of seen, okay, let's see what's next and go do that. So that's kind of how Daybreak on Raven Island came along. And hopefully I can continue to do this.
Yeah. Why don't you just set up Barclay Hotel, just give folks the nugget story there, just so we know where it's located and what's involved.
So Midnight at the Barclay Hotel is basically three kids, a bit like Daybreak on Raven Island, but a bit different. They're a little bit younger, or the book feels a little bit younger. They go along with the adults in their lives to the Barclay Hotel, where the adults have won this weekend getaway, and they're all excited, and the kids are excited because the Barclay Hotel is super haunted. No one's been there in a long time, modeled after the Stanley Hotel. And when they get there, they find out that the adults that have been invited are all suspects in Mr. Barclay's murder, who is the hotel owner. So we go through the weekend and learn all about motive, means, opportunity, what it might take to investigate a mystery. And there's a few ghosts thrown in along the way. So that's Midnight at the Barclay Hotel in a nutshell. You got to think Agatha Christie basically for kids.
Yeah. Well, I don't read a lot of young adult novels, but I absolutely loved Midnight at the Barclay Hotel.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was terrific. Is Raven Island as expository in a way in terms of explaining the elements of the mystery genre?
A little bit less. Daybreak on Raven Island relies a little bit more on a movie structure. So one of the characters in the book, Marvin, really wants to make a movie, and he was going to do it with his best friend, but his best friend moved away. So it's just him and these two other kids that he really doesn't know, but they kind of become allies along the way. So the plot structure is a little bit more around a script, or how you might pace a script. So that's kind of the underlying tone of Daybreak on Raven Island. It's a little bit less that explaining of the solving of a mystery, since this audience is also just a little bit older.
Mm-hmm. You probably get this question all the time, but how do you know as a young adult writer what vocabulary is, well, first of all, being used today and is now, because it seems to change so fast, but also that you don't use something that is beyond the limits of your audience?
I think some of that is instinct. Reading a lot of books. I read a lot of books for this age group that I write for middle grade, and then YA is then a bit older, would be more for your teen audience. So then you're definitely more into pop culture and all of that. I think for my audience, for these books, sort of that 8 to 12-year-old, actually, the less you go towards anything that might be trendy now, the better, because you want these books to last for 10 years. I will say that you need to be in touch with what kids are like today, and what is okay for the age group, what you can talk about, how you talk about things, what language to use. As you said, there's certain words that we don't want to use anymore. It's good to stay up to date with that. And my editor and copy editors and those people also truly help with that, is sort of going, hey, this is appropriate, this is not appropriate, and finding that balance between challenging the kids, because they're a lot smarter than you think they are, and still, making it accessible and understandable so they don't feel left out.
Yeah, cool. So you mentioned it's modeled after Alcatraz. Have you been to Alcatraz, or did you go out for research?
I have not. I've been to San Francisco, but Alcatraz, as some of you may know, you have to book in advance. And at the time that was not, we were sort of on the fly there. So I did most of my research online, which is wonderful. You can see most of it. I hope to go there someday because that would be really cool. But I kind of start my stories with setting. So with Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, I'd been tossing around this mystery, but it didn't really come together until I went to the Stanley Hotel. Likewise, when it was time to write the next middle grade, I was kind of like, well, what is a cool setting? And it was Alcatraz. I'm like, oh, Alcatraz is cool. And then I just, sort of delve into the research, which is the fun part, to try to find some mysteries and some stories that I can draw from, and then create my own version of the island in this case.
And did you put it in the same general area in the San Francisco Bay?
Yeah, I'm sort of vague about it, like Pacific Northwest. It's I don't say they're coming from a certain city. I sort of keep that vague so you can kind of imagine it being somewhere like there along the coast, basically.
Right. So the research wasn't necessarily all Alcatraz heavy. Alcatraz.
Well, what was funny is that there's a prison break in the 60s. That was towards the end before they closed Alcatraz, where 3 inmates escaped and no one really knows whether they made it off or not. So I kind of started with that research going, okay, what would it take to get off the island? What might be a way that one would escape? And I kind of ran with that and made it super secretive, spooky, and scary and stuff. So and then I went back and researched it some more, and some of the research that I did in the story I came up with is actually one of the theories of the escape. And I don't want to spoil the book, but one of the theories of the escape I actually accidentally used in the book myself. So that was kind of fun to see that.
Accidentally.
I accidentally did. It's fun how sometimes stuff comes together like that, where you're like, oh, look at that. So the fun of research.
So maybe you should be, selling your advice to prisoners about how to escape and
well, no, that would be bad.
But it does mean you have a crafty mind, I suppose.
Apparently so. I sort of, ran with it, and it's the imagination, that's always the fun part. And it's fun to create your own setting rather than having to draw on a real life one. For the Double Vision series, each of the books is set in a certain city. The first one's Paris, second DC, and the third one LA. So I really had to make sure that I got all the details right of, what are the cobblestones like in Paris at this location, that sort of stuff. Whereas for these 2 books, I'm like, I want to create my own setting, because then if I feel like putting in cobblestones, I can, or if I can leave them out, then I can do that too. So
more freedom.
That's fun.
Yeah. So with the island and the 2 ferry trips a day, is it sort of a locked room, sort of limited number of possible suspects?
Yeah, I mean, it's the typical, I don't want to call it a cheap trick, but it's an easy way to make sure that the kids can't leave and they don't have a cell phone or, that sort of thing. At the Barclay Hotel, they're up on a mountain, so they're isolated there. On Raven Island, obviously, until daybreak, they are stuck on the island. And that's a good way to put on a time clock. It's fun because you have kids trapped that would normally not be necessarily friends, and they become friends over the course of the story. So yes, that's definitely the plot device I used and ran with.
Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about is marketing, and follow you on Twitter and see lots of activity. I don't know if you've kept track about how many Zooms and events you've done with classrooms and Skypes and
A lot, yeah.
a lot. Any rough idea?
At least 100, probably more, particularly during the COVID days. Sometimes I had 3 a day, where I would do talks all the time. And it was a conscious decision. When Midnight at the Barclay Hotel was supposed to come out in August of 2020, in the winter of 2020, March, we all got to stay home and thought it would be over soon, but I kind of saw it coming. And then at first I was really concerned with the sales of the book. I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to approach this? I can't do book signings. I can't do any of the things that one would normally do for this. And then I was sort of moaning to myself about that, or in a way being, very selfish. And then I saw all the teachers, all the kids, all the people that were struggling at home. And I'm like, what am I talking about? I'm talking about a book. Who cares about a book? There's kids, there's people that are struggling every day during this thing. They're at home, kids are trying to learn with, I would see it. I would do the Zoom visits and I'd see all the kids at home with a sister on the lap or a dog in the back, in the kitchen, in their bedrooms, messy houses, people coming and going. And so it felt really trivial to worry about a book. And then it felt really liberating in a way to just throw that out the window and go, I'm just going to do a nice thing. I'm going to Zoom for free. I'm going to do school talks, and I'm just going to not charge people for it and just do it. And I think that that's what, in the end, my not selling the book sold the book, because people were grateful, and that got, it gave people content. It gave them something to do. It gave me something to talk about mysteries, because that's what I did. I talked about how much I love mysteries, and other people, the kids would come in and talk about their dog and about their favorite color and their favorite food, and you're making connections as a human being. And that's really what it was about for me during that launch year, is just trying to make connections with people who were so isolated and alone. So in a way, not selling the book, it was the best way to sell the book.
How did you find, well, first of all, that's fantastic. I just love that. But how did you find these opportunities, or did you just put it out there into the universe and people started to come to you?
I hear this a lot from fellow children's authors. We know that school visits are a great way to sell a book, because then it ends up in a school library. Sometimes, hopefully, the kids go home. You see the posters behind me. They're there because that way the kids see these posters while I'm talking all the time. It's not by accident. But it's hard to get school visits. It's hard to get in-person ones, and they're extremely tiring because you're there all day, talking 3 times. Doing that from home is actually beneficial because it's a lot less, you're not traveling, you're not doing all that stuff. Plus, then you have the opportunity to do it for free. But getting those visits is difficult. I'm on Twitter a lot, and teachers were on Twitter, and librarians are on Twitter. So they see it, they see, hey, she's Skyping for free. This seems like a great idea, let's do it. So that sort of got the ball rolling. Once people know, they share that it was a good visit or whatever, and then someone else comes along. And that's kind of how that snowballed into a year of 100+ visits. And it was a lot of fun. It was a place for me to place my excitement for the book, and to talk to kids who are my readers.
And just on the business end of things, you could see the sales happen.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about children's books is that they're slow. So they'll come out. It's not like a traditional book that might have 6 weeks of marketing during the launch, and that's the end of it. They have a long tail, meaning they'll slowly roll out. People start buying it, then people tell other people that it's a good book. Then if you're lucky, you end up on one of the school, sort of the state award lists or something like that, which then turns into library sales, which then turns into this, that. But it's not something that you can control. So it is very difficult. I'm extremely grateful for the success of Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, but some of this is unfortunately luck. So there's that.
You might be giving away too much credit. I don't know.
Well, I think it helps that it's a younger middle grade, in the sense that people were reading it together. So some parents and kids were reading it together, which this book lends itself to very well. It's an easy read aloud for younger kids and for older kids, because it's fun, it's a mystery.
Yeah.
So I think in a way it sort of hit that market just right, and just at the right time.
Yeah. Your publisher is happy, I assume.
Yes, they are happy. And it's still doing well and still selling a lot. So it's which for a book that's been out almost 2 years is pretty amazing. So I'm very grateful and happy and hope to build on it with Daybreak on Raven Island.
Yeah. You said you learned a lot from going from Double Vision to Barclay Hotel. And it sounded like you really put some thought into analyzing what to do differently. And that sparked the idea or sparked the concept for Midnight at the Barclay Hotel. How would you advise somebody starting out in the business to, adopt that sort of framework of looking, analyzing their own work, finding out what they can do better? This is a very conscientious thing on your part. It sounded like you really purposefully stopped and evaluated where to go. And it's not as if you put aside all your artistic and creative side and just went at it from a business side, but you sort of maybe blended the two and you recognized the market.
Yeah, I think it does help to sort of look at, for instance, Midnight at the Barclay Hotel has a strong Colorado tie. I live in Colorado. That helped. I didn't have that with Double Vision, so it was very difficult to get any sort of local teeth into the market. So that didn't help. It's not necessarily an easy classroom adaptation. Double Vision appeals to the reluctant reader, but more the book that you take and you go sit in a corner with, not necessarily. It wasn't really taking off as a read aloud in a classroom, things like that. So I thought about that with Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, trying to get more into, which obviously paid off, to have a better tie to teachers and librarians, to really listen to what it is that they need, which was this book. This book is easily accessible. It has a timeless quality to it. And it's short enough where teachers can read a chapter a day. They can read it with kids who are, strong readers, not so strong readers. So it hits that market just right. I thought about that. The other thing I really did, which everybody says, and it sounds like such corny advice, but it really is true. I wrote the book of my heart. So I wrote the book that I really wanted to write. And I thought to myself, you know what, if it does great, if I sell it, awesome. If I don't place it anywhere, that's okay, because it was the book that I really needed to write. Like, this is me, this is mystery, this is what I love. So that was a really strong part of it. I sort of, threw all the marketing things aside and just thought about what I love. And that's pays off great now, because those 100 school visits, 100 times I am talking about that book. If you add to that interviews and talks to writers and still talking about it, you are talking about your own book hundreds of times. You had better be proud and excited about it, because it will not do. If you sit in a corner and quietly and be all polite and shy about it, no one's going to know about your book. And I've done that with the Double Vision books. I was a little bit, writers are by nature introverts. So we just want to sit at home kind of quietly. We don't want to talk about the book, and we're afraid to be proud of it, but you have to be a little bit boastful and go, you know what, I wrote this book and I'm really proud of it and I hope you read it. And then people respond to that.
Yeah.
And it's easier for you because you're talking about something you love. So, like me here talking now, this is easy because I'm talking about what I'm passionate about. So if you are out there and you're thinking about, what to write, or you're struggling with the project, try to find what it is that you really, really love, and then write that book. Even if you think, oh, I'm not ready, I don't think I have the skills, forget it. Just write that book, because that's your book. And that translates when you're looking for agents, it translates when you're working with an editor, and it translates when it comes time to sit out there and sell the thing, because that's what you have to do as an author. You are your own business, and you have to go out there and sell it. That's just, otherwise it will not be successful and you will not work. So
yeah. Wow. It must feel pretty darn good to look back and realize that sort of process is well rewarded.
It is. It feels good. And the best part, what I started to do, and you can see it behind me, I get fan mail from kids and I didn't always know what to do with it. Now, every day I post a new piece of fan mail on my little clip here for inspiration. And that's what keeps me going in the end, because the kids are the best. They're so fun and they make me laugh, and they'll ask you funny questions. And, you know, they'll send you artwork with their name on it, and, you know, you are awesome. And I mean, who doesn't want that? And, you know, what better thing is there than that? So that's what I post every work day. I put a piece up and I post it on Twitter.
Yeah, the Twitter ones I see for sure, and they're
Fun.
cute. They're cute, and it creates a sort of a presence for you and a reason to be out there. And
Yeah.
you know, I think some writers feel like that, you know, sometimes they're just being too pushy on Twitter, that they can't, you know, they don't want to come across as being overly self-promoting.
Mhm.
What's nice about your model is you're always thanking your readers, which is, after such direct content, a wonderful thing to do. But
People
it's
respond to that. So it's not, you know, like you think about it when you're trying to think of what do I do on social media. I try to be, you have to connect to people one person at a time. I took a marketing class once from Dan Blank. He does media consulting and teaches authors how to create, you know, sort of a marketing plan or how to market. And he talks about it being one person at a time. And I try to remember that all the time. Like when I'm having communications, whether it's on Twitter, I have a ton of followers, but not everybody listens or not everybody's there. So you try to make connections just one-on-one, and then it's fun. Then it's, you know, it's kind of like at a conference. You don't try to connect with all 1,000 people that are at the conference. You connect with your table. So you have to find your table, kind of.
That's great. Are you on TikTok?
I have a TikTok. I started one, but I'm having a really hard time trying to figure out where I fit on that. So I'm sort of, you know, observing the room in a way. Twitter, I understand, and I've been on there a long time.
Me too.
This is just seems like a whole lot of visual stimulation, and I'm old, so it takes me a little bit to. I look at it and I'm like, I don't know if I want to jump in just yet. So perhaps.
Are you on Instagram? I think you're on Instagram, aren't
I'm
you?
on Instagram. Instagram's a little easier because it's images. So I post the same fan mail and that sort of stuff on Instagram. Instagram's a little bit more passive to me. It's harder to communicate directly with people. So that's what I like about Twitter. I know for a lot of people, it looks like noise, but I have a lot of one-on-one contact with people via Twitter, and that works well for me.
Yeah. Well, Instagram is trying to compete with TikTok now with Reels, and it's getting kind of noisy on Instagram.
Yes.
Figuring out how to
Advertising, I noticed. I get more advertising now.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, wait, this is all ads.
Yeah, it is.
No actual people.
Very
So
much.
that's challenging, and Twitter has some of that as well. So
Yeah.
you have to find your way through.
But the word is TikTok is really active on Book Talk, Book TOK, and it's there's a big buzzy audience in the TikTok land. So, but
yeah, and that's one of the reasons I'm like, oh, I'll check it out, because I do think that you sometimes have to challenge yourself. And with like each book launch, I try to push myself into a little bit out of my comfort zone also, because I'm getting a bit older. It's very easy to sit and be grumpy in the corner. And I don't want to be that person. I want to try and see if I can find a connection. But Book Talk, I think some of it's driven more by fans rather than the authors themselves.
true.
So I have to figure out whether, like you mentioned, I want to make sure that I'm authentic and I'm connecting with people one-on-one. I don't want it to just be my billboard somewhere. So I have to see with TikTok whether there's an opportunity for that, or whether you're just being loud in the void.
Yeah. Do you have a specific launch event planned for Daybreak on Raven Island?
Well, we're out in the world again, so I have to find real pants and go out and and I'm doing signings in Colorado. I'm still putting some details together, but I'm mostly doing book signings around Colorado, and then also doing some online events as well, because so much of my audience is sort of shifted to the online sphere. So I'm doing that. doing graphics and all the other pre-order campaign where people can get a poster of Raven Island if they pre-ordered a book. So yeah, exciting. And it's fun. Like I said, I try with each launch to do something I haven't done before. That way I'm challenging myself and I'm not just, doing the same thing. And the world is constantly changing as we are talking now. TikTok last year was not such a big deal, and now it's all huge. So, we have to adapt and learn new things and find new ways to connect with our readers. So,
Yep. And is there a third book underway?
I am working on both a YA and a middle grade mystery. So this summer has been all about editing for me. So I'm hoping maybe in the new year I'll have some more news for the next book.
Yeah.
But for now, it's still in the studio.
Yeah. And I misspoke. I only meant third book in this particular.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand what you meant. The next whatever follow on it'll be, we'll have to see. I'm excited for what I'm working on, and it's a lot of fun. I still, I have a lot of fun writing for this age group. So looking forward to putting that one out there.
Yeah. Wow. You just seem like you're in a nice, steady groove right now.
Yeah. I think so. I think like I said, it was liberating to sort of let go of some of this have to feeling that we get around books and book launches, and just sort of try to go with what feels naturally like a fun thing to do, and to try to reconnect with all the people that supported Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, because I had such tremendous here in Colorado. People have been incredibly supportive, and then just in general, all around the country, all the teachers and librarians. So yes, kind of building on that and feeling again forever grateful for all those people.
That's great. Well, Fleur, a final question is always among our guests is to recommend a book or a writer, somebody to just pay it forward a little bit.
Yes. I wish I had a cover to show you, but maybe people can look it up. It's a book that's coming out in October, so you have to pre-order, but you want to pre-order this one. I got an early copy of Sisterhood of Sleuths. I have to make sure I pronounce it correctly. Sisterhood of Sleuths by Jennifer Chambly Burtman. She wrote the book Scavenger series, so some of you may be familiar with her books from that. She has a brand new book out, a mystery for kids, and it's all about Nancy Drew and a Nancy Drew legend, and put in sort of a contemporary light. I love this book, out in October, so pre-order it. Colorado author also, so go support that.
Great. Very good. Well, Fleur, thank you so much for your time. Good luck with Daybreak on Raven Island, and maybe we'll do this again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.